There are multiple possible features. Some of them are plausible, some of them are desirable, some of them are undesirable. Perfect.
Okay, this is here from Framtiden. We're recording from Gather 2019. My name is Christopher Nessen. I'm here with Sami Niemelä. Welcome to the show. You did a talk in the session called Fake It Till You Make It. Can you summarize briefly what you talked about?
That is a really good question. So what I talked about is what is real and what is fake and when is it, basically. So we now have things like design fiction, visions, but then what about artificial intelligence, machine learning? How do they affect that, and how could we use them as tools? I don't know if that's it's a short description of a very complex talk and topic, but
But you run an agency called Nordkapp.
Yeah.
And what do you do with regards to these topics?
So Nordkapp is a design agency. We do strategic design and innovation. We've been doing that for 12 years. We're headquartered in Helsinki, but we have a base in Amsterdam, and we work projects globally nowadays. And we basically do three things. So futures thinking, so futures insight, foresight, futures doing, which is products and experience design, and then futures learning, so coaching, trainings, and then organizational change. So basically, what we try to do holistically is to figure out what are the directions in the future companies need to go to, and they'll then help them to get there and help them to kind of stay on top of their game, basically, by changing the organization in the form that actually is kind of anti-fragile almost.
Yeah, you touched upon the collaboration between algorithms and machine learning and the human creativity. Do you think that's an interesting path to pursue for design companies, for example?
I think it's a necessary path. It's a very interesting one as well. But I mean, what I see technology as material for design, and design is the way to solve problems for people, right? So with machine learning, even though a lot of people talk about AI, machine learning. What I found, there's anyway, there was a lady from Copenhagen in my talk who talked about Wizard of. So there's a lot of systems have this man pulling the strings behind them without us realizing. And basically machine learning AI is pretty much about that nowadays. So obviously we can do a lot of analysis, kind of neural networks and whatnot, but it's mostly fairly basic. And we are basically just learning as we go. But the way I see it, neural networks, computer vision, machine learning, they are design material, which is necessary to understand, at least.
It's still a very early stage. That's also a common theme in these talks, right? Elizabeth Jochum was her name.
Yeah.
And
Elizabeth, I'm really bad with names.
One of your main sort of conclusions was that we need to build our future together. The future is just not something we can wait to happen. Is that your philosophy? Yeah.
So I mean, the basic idea of futures thinking, futures insight, foresight, how we want to call it, we analyze the current to kind of to find out the trends, current signals that point us to multiple futures, and then we can proactively select some of those futures that might exist and start working towards those. Sort of progressive protopias, basically.
Oh yeah, you mentioned protopia instead of utopia. What do you mean by that? So
protopia is a term that I first heard from Kevin Kelly, founder of Wire, and then people like Monica Bilskid and some others, they've been talking about it a lot during the past couple of years. So the idea of protopia is that utopias are always singular. Utopia is always a one point of view of a future, usually fairly far off, and that's that leaves a lot of stuff. So that's why a lot of the visions of the future, they never happen. There's like, people have been anticipating like mobile phones, like video calling, that kind of stuff for 100 years, but in a very different form that it actually happened. But the basic need for telepresence was there. But we got there throughout technological development over like, I don't know, 80 years or so. And finally we have like FaceTime, which is like something people take for granted. So there was a guy from MIT Sensible Cities before me. He talked about that kind of like, he didn't believe in future at all, but they use a lot of like data to quantify what goes on in the environment. And that's partially true. I partially agree with that. But you can't make the future just by following what happens around you, because then you're being reactionary, right? But instead of, if you actually progressively want to build a better future for yourself, for your company, whoever, you actually have to start building these protopias every single day. And by multiplying small actions every day, you actually get this exponential change curve in the end. Another sort of my favorite topics is complexity theory and complex systems. So the world is a complex place. Humans are by nature, we are very, very complex, but at the same time we are really, really bad on handling complexity. So we try to think everything is simple, obvious, and can be condensed in a checklist, which, according to complexity theory, if there's something that can be kind of like seen as a checklist, that's bound to break very soon, because that's not how the world works. So that's kind of like the underlying idea of protopias as well. So when we build these new sort of like prototypes, probes for the future, they will always reveal new complexities. They reveal all new narratives we didn't know about. They reveal new sort of problems. So we have to proactively work through those all the time. And that's kind of like, it's essentially just like designing for complexity.
And you mentioned metamodernism as well, which is the sort of study of exactly that, the complexity of society. But do you see different kinds of skill sets needed for approaching this future?
All of them, all the time.
Like we had Gather, which is a multidisciplinary conference. Are we on the right path here?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a steering synergies, right? So you start with intradisciplinary, then you work towards a multidisciplinary. The final step is transdisciplinary. So transdisciplinary means that basically all the disciplines work together all the time without any ego, without any ownership. So that's kind of like, I see that is a very, very essential skill for design industries, futures. I don't want to turn to futurist. I don't know about that one. But futures thinkers, technologists. So basically, the problems we have are so complex that we can't solve them by ourselves. We can prototype and we can probe them, but in order to solve the complex problems, we need progressively build complex ecosystems that have all the components, skill, technology, knowledge in order to kind of figure that out, basically. So it's absolutely about, for a designer, technology is more and more about soft skills. So technology can be learned. You have all new tools, frameworks all the time. So starting from like neural networks, TensorFlow and whatnot. But I think the most important skill is to actually work well with people and understand the real why behind why are we doing the things we do. And then all the else from there will sort of like reveal itself over time.
You consequently use the term futures in plural. What does that mean?
So, I mean, futures are plural. So there's no single future, but there are multiple possible futures. Some of them are plausible, some of them are desirable, some of them are undesirable. So there's this tool called the Futures Cone, for example, by a gentleman named Joseph Voros. So it kind of like visualizes futures as a cone that is expanding the further out we go into the future. So we have some things we can probably, for example, if we start speculating what the world's going to look like in 5 years' time or 10 years' time, we can probably speculate. Here's some of the ideas that are the infrastructure, society, it won't be changing in 10 years. I hope not. At least not too much. But then there's like around that, there's like a lot of things like services, the culture, preferred way of transport, for example, that will change. And that will probably change. So they are very possible futures. And then there's like, for example, problems from climate change mitigation, which are kind of undesirable futures. And then, I mean, obviously, then there's like one of the kind of important components are black swans as well. So Nicola Nassim Taleb wrote a book about them. So events that are completely unanticipated, unforeseen, they just happen. They disrupt a lot of things. That comes back to protopias and designing for anti-fragility as well. So we need to build systems that are resilient, that actually handle change well. But that was it was a bit of a segue. Where did we start?
The term futures instead of the future.
Yeah, so there are always multiple futures. And the good side about that is, which I talked about in talk as well, that we can actually proactively select the futures we want and then start working towards them, basically. So, and in business strategy, there's a tool called backcasting, for example, which basically in business terms, you project like your ideal optimal future in, let's say, 10 years time. And then you start progressively backcasting that, so mapping out the path from the future to current day. So then you can actually you gain understanding of the system and the steps we need to take in order to get to that particular future. And sort of like the idea of backcasting includes as well that the future we want today in 10 years' time actually might be wrong. We don't know that. It might be just like one of these utopias that are impossible. So that's why we need to sort of progressively build protopia, small steps, and incrementally start kind of like figuring out the system of where we want to go to. Long and winding answer, but yes, there are always multiple futures.
Sometimes it can be actually limiting to set firm goals for like, this is what's going to happen in 5 years, in 10 years, and also personally, because things change.
Humans are really, really bad with ambiguity in general, and we are really bad anticipating long change. So we always aim for the short term, for the short rewards. It's basically built in the human psyche. Our brain works that way. We seek for like instant gratification instead of, I mean, your own personal health, for example. So if hamburgers and beef are really good for you, they might taste really good, but in the long term, like on, let's say, 30 years time span, they might be really bad for you. But still, people choose the instant gratification over the long-term health effect because it's really intangible, it's really invisible, and it's super slow. So humans suck at anticipating like big changes. And there's a theory of kind of how futures and big shifts happen as well. That in all the big changes usually happen much faster than we anticipate, because our focus is on the everyday life, on the short-term change. Meanwhile, the system changes like behind us. That's how Trump happened, basically, as well. That's how a lot of the sort of politics, and especially climate change, has happened. So short-term interest over like long-term benefits on a systemic level.
So what is your best tip for making the world a better place?
Start today. Start from anywhere. So there's not a single place to start, but all of them.
Do you have a good reading tip?
I have plenty, and you should see my Kindle list, which I'm gonna dig up now.
Now it's opening the Kindle list.
It's sunny here, so my Face ID doesn't work. Another systemic problem. So I am reading. At the moment, there's a Jesus Christ Kindle. Show me the cover. So, book by Annie Duke, Thinking in Bets. So Annie Duke is a former poker champion, writes about decision making. And apparently this is the book the Andreessen Horowitz also, they formulated their investment strategy on.
Making smarter decisions when you don't have all the facts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the point of that, like, many of the choices we make are based on dumb estimates, some better, some worse.
Gut feeling,
intuition, and just like luck. People don't acknowledge the effect of luck in their lives. As they say, like, luck is just being prepared to change. So I'm middle of the book. That's super interesting. Just like how can we kind of anticipate, make better choices about. And I think choice making, sense making that informs better choice making, as Daniel Schmachtenberger puts it. That's one really essential skill for the future as well. As you can see, there's a couple of other books as well. Yeah. Organizations, sci-fi, DEO, headless organizations, Chinese sci-fi, American sci-fi, all kinds of stuff.
Interesting. Who do you think I should interview?
Good question. There's so many people. I think you should talk to Monika Bilskett. She's a futurist. She actually works with a lot of tech and movie industry, building worlds. Okay. So she's had a handle in the new Blade Runner, Ghost in a Shell, I think, and a couple of other really big pictures. She's been doing a lot of talking at Google and a lot of tech companies. I think she's one of the most sharpest, most opinionated minds at the scene at the moment. And she's a woman as well, so it's a plus.
Great tip. Thank you so much, Sami, for joining here Framtiden.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
And check out, is it Nordkapp or Nord?
Nordkapp.
With a D?
Yeah.
Nordkapp.fi for more information about designing the future.
Awesome.
Designing multiple futures, of course.
Well, future directions and make them tangible. And I am on Twitter at Samin as well. So there's there's a lot of quite random stuff there.
Okay. Great. Check out herframtiden.se and check out Gather, not 2019 because it's already happened when you listen to this, but maybe next year. Thank you, Gather Stockholm, for arranging this.